What's going on, guys? I'm back with another video today. So this is not a trade recap because this week we do have a lot of back-to-back holidays. Decided to take the rest of the week off. So no recaps for the time being, but I did want to make a video on something recent that just came out with Topstep. That is the no activation fee accounts. This has been something that a lot of people have been excited for and a lot of people have been waiting for, and rightfully so. You know, those activation fees hit like a truck and they are very expensive. And I feel like a lot of other prop firms were kind of ahead of the curve in terms of not having these activation fees because Topstep kind of was falling behind for a second because they were one of the only ones who had activation fees, and especially ones that were this expensive. So it was about time they did this, and I do think that this was a short term, at least, a very good decision for them because they probably had a lot of people buying accounts as soon as this rolled out. But I just wanted to kind of talk about it and go over it for the people who don't know if they should pick standard accounts or activation or no activation fees accounts, or if they just don't know whichever one is best for them, or if they feel like they should just go to the no activation fee account. That might not be the case. That's not necessarily the best decision for everybody. So obviously, no activation fee on the surface, it sounds great, right? But one thing that you have to remember is that prop firms, they get their money from people not succeeding through trading. So we're going to kind of write some of these things down. So one important thing to remember is that most traders are not profitable. So because most traders are not profitable, they're obviously relying on that in order to make their money so then they can pay out to people that are profitable. For those of you who didn't know, only about 3% of traders on Topstep are actually receiving payouts. And this 3%, it sounds like 3% of people are profitable, but that's not necessarily the case. A lot of these people within this 3% may be getting payouts that are just making back some of the money that they've spent on evals or just enough to break even. A lot of these people aren't necessarily profitable just because they're getting payouts. So that's also important to consider. So this is just kind of surface level knowledge. I know it doesn't seem very relevant to what I'm about to get into, but I just want to make sure that people understand this. Most people are not profitable, and the people that are getting payouts also aren't all profitable. So in order to keep this business model going, and in order to make sure that people are still receiving payouts, they are relying on most people putting in more money than they are taking out from Topstep. So that's where this comes in. This was a good decision for a lot of for Topstep because a lot of people who are investing in these no activation fee accounts are just thinking about it on a surface level, like, oh, okay, there's no activation fees. That means that in the grand scheme of things, I'd be spending less money if I were to pass this account. But that's the caveat. You have to pass the account. If you're not somebody who's profitable, or you're not somebody who's consistently passing accounts, if you're not somebody who's ever passed an account, or you feel like you struggle, or you don't do it at a high rate, you blow through a lot of accounts, this might not be the best decision for you. Because yes, on the surface it seems less expensive, but if you're not passing your account, you're going to spend more money, right? So think about it like this. If you are somebody who blows through a lot of accounts before you pass one, or somebody who's never passed one and you've gone through multiple accounts, you have a monthly fee of $89 if you have a 50K account. While if you have a standard, you have a monthly fee of $49. So when you pass, you have to pay this $129 fee, but that's when you pass, right? So if it takes you 2 months to pass one account because you don't know what you're doing, so you're trying to take things very slow, you're trying not to blow it, so you're just taking your sweet, sweet, sweet time to pass the account. Let's say you take 2 months, right? You put in $100 on a standard account by trying to trade for those 2 months on that eval. While if you are on a no activation fee account, you just spent about $180 on just 2 months from trying to pass this account. So between spending 180 and spending 100, obviously there's a pretty big difference there. But the thing is, this is still cheaper, of course, because after you spend the 2 months worth on the 50K from the standard account, you do have to pay the $129 activation fee. So in the grand scheme of things, it still is more expensive. But if you cannot pass something on your first try, and if you cannot pass something consistently, it doesn't make any sense to try and take that gamble of not paying an activation fee, right? If you fail 3, 4 times before you can pass an account, then it's best to fail and spend $50 about 3 or 4 times instead of spending $89 3 or 4 times before you finally pass. So that's exactly why it says it here. The no activation fee path is best for traders who are dialed in and can pass in 1 to 2 attempts. So please do not let these prop firms rinse you, right? Of course this is how they make their money, but that doesn't mean you need to go give them money and spend your hard-earned money and blow more accounts to make sure that you get a payout. Trust me, there's plenty of other unprofitable people that are going to do that for you, and there are plenty of people who are buying these no activation fee accounts because they are less expensive and blowing through them and giving Topstep the money they need to give you your payout. So please make sure that you are taking the right steps and doing what's best for you and being real with yourself. Like if you know that you're not very good at passing accounts, if you know that you don't pass them on the first or second try, if you know that you've never passed an account, just stick with the standard one, okay? It's not worth trying to take the gamble to save $100 maybe. Like, yeah, that is a pretty substantial amount, but it's just not worth the risk if you cannot pass accounts consistently. So before you decide to buy a no activation fee account, just make sure you keep those in mind, then move accordingly.